All right, welcome back to another episode of Asset Coach and Tax Strategist. If you're a subscriber, thank you so much for subscribing. We're continuing our series that we've been talking about. So, if you're the first time listener, we're in I think part 3 now. Feel free to go back to the other episodes, get caught up, hit subscribe so you get all these upcoming episodes and parts, depending on how many more parts we go through this series here. What we're really talking about is more of the current events of what's been occurring with the U.S., Venezuela, Greenland, and really some of these other decisions that have occurred previously that are leading to now. Just because there's so much conversation about U.S. debt, Venezuela, Greenland. I figured let's create some episodes to talk about this kind of stuff. So go ahead and subscribe so that way you get notified every Thursday when we drop a new episode. If you like our content, please give us a thumbs up. So let's talk about today's content. Let's talk about this. So we're really going to talk about, we spent last episode talking about Robert Kiyosaki and Warren Buffett and kind of what they have done to build their businesses, if you will. And what's this mean for you and I? And so again, going on the baseline of economic termites, we've done multiple episodes on economic termites in my book. So feel free to go back to those and take a look at those as well. But this episode is really more focused on, okay, let's think about this. Yes, the U.S. has the strongest military, but the reality is wars don't really start with bombs anymore. What do I mean by that? Well, yes, I don't know if you watched any of the information on Venezuela, but and again, this is not about Venezuela and only about Venezuela, but let's think about what happened here. We had a political figure in Venezuela that said, "Hey, I'm here, come get me," and so we did. And the reality is that the military support was really just there to create what we needed, but that's not the economic. So here's what we need to understand: is the reality is that we need to understand how financial isolation works. Financial isolation, how sanctions become a step in this process, how currency collapse and reserve freezes become part of this conversation. We need to understand why energy exports become weapons in the political conversation and how payment systems are what are used as leverage in all this. Okay, these are all connected, and this is exactly what's going on, right? So since World War II, the dollar has been the value exchange between countries, right? When one country would do something in another country, the dollar exchange was the value. That created economic power for us. That created control for us. Okay. So all of a sudden, when you start having the United States government putting sanctions on other countries like we did Russia, we did Iran, what do those companies do? Those countries do. Well, think about it. When you're somebody and you get in trouble, let's say your boss tells you, "Hey, you know what? You did this wrong, blah, 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 blah." How do you feel? You're not like, "Oh, gee, thank you so much for being mad at me and correcting me. And oh my goodness, you're so right. I'm horrible. I should have done way better." No, your pride and your ego gets hurt, right? Whether they're right or they're wrong, that's the first thing that occurs is our pride and ego gets bruised, right? And so how do you feel? What's that emotion to that? That emotion to that becomes almost like a war cry internally, like, wait, we're not going to allow this to happen again. So what do you think what do you think Russia and Iran felt like when the US put sanctions on them? When they froze their assets? Huh, sounds like a weapon. Sounds like they got punished. So what would they do? They started developing a system that moved the US out of the way so they can still do what they were doing. Okay? And that's what this whole BRICS thing is. It's a different payments system. Now, the currency in the US, because of inflation, because of the inappropriate management of US debt, okay, And if you want to know more about that, go watch a couple episodes ago. We talked more about that focus of U.S. debt, who owns it, all that kind of stuff. But when you have that inappropriate use of debt, not managed, not corrected, you and I as citizens lending the government money and the politicians sending this money out with no repercussions or return or value to us, that devalues our currency. Okay. And as the buying power and the devaluation of our currency keeps going down, what happens? That means you and I have to have more money. Well, our taxes are based on a percentage of our income. So if all of a sudden we need more money to pay for our lifestyle, we're also paying more taxes. You see how this system just sucks value out of you and I. Okay. But when we look at other hard assets like energy exports, oil, minerals, okay, these are also currencies. These are also value. And now energy, because you need these minerals, you need this oil, you need this stuff to make your weapons, to create the things that you have in your economy. Okay. And so when we had this globalization, what did China start doing? They understood this. They were so smart. And they started absorbing and buying steel and hoarding these types of things because they saw ahead and they used US politician greed and ego and pride to their advantage and took advantage of this situation to the point where all of a sudden we're sitting here going, oh crap. And I think 2020, what happened in 2020 was the realization was like, oh shoot, we got to stop this. And that's what Trump started to do in his first stint in office, was make this change. And then all of a sudden there was this manufactured flu that all of a sudden created this system. And I'm not talking politics right now. What I'm talking about is reality today, 5 years later, looking back at what occurred and what has come out. Okay. And the reality is that this is what was going on. Energy, exports, currency, the political environment behind the scenes, and they used us as they had to distract us. And that's what they did. But what they didn't realize is their distraction create eye-opening. The scales came off of our eyes. And the majority of us were like, hold on a second. Now you've gone too far. Right? And when we're looking at the system and the events that occurred, that's what's going on right now. Is that you had a Venezuela that was making deals with China. Okay, Venezuela was one of the wealthiest countries before socialism destroyed their currency, and what was their greatest value? Oil. So Trump came in here because also what's happening to our currency? Because of our debt, the value is dropping significantly. And that does need to happen in order for us to continue to survive. So we have to create a backdrop of value, and that's where the mineral resources and oil comes into play. Okay? And so that's what's occurring, is that these resources are the value that's backing the dollar now. But it's also politically giving us strength because now we have the ability to have these resources and these minerals to do the things we need to do, because China did a great job of hoarding. Okay. So this is important information for us to understand as we go through this process, because, we have people sitting here thinking that we're this big bad wolf. But at the end of the day, you got to think about this. What language do you want to speak in the United States? You want to speak Russian? You want to speak German? You want to speak Chinese? Or do you like continuing to live the way you do in the lifestyle you have? And nothing has changed from kings and kingdoms to what's going on now. It's about resources. And it's about managing those resources and protecting your interests. That's all this ever has been. That's why after World War II, the dollar became the trading value where the U.S. stepped in This is why we created NATO, why we created all these global things to protect our interests. You don't like it, go to those other countries that are wanting our interests. Go spend some time there. Go live there and see what the results of that is. So, bottom line, you don't have to like what's happening. You may feel bad for other people, but there's two sides of the coin. Just like you're not happy, there are people here that are happy. Just like in Venezuela, there are people who weren't happy. There are people that were thrilled and are happy. There are two sides of the coin. Okay. But the reality is, you got to look at the interest of, are you comfortable driving your Tesla every day? Are you comfortable walking into your house and flipping a switch or saying lights on? Are you happy going into your refrigerator and there being food there because you just went to the grocery store down the street to pick up your food? Are you happy to go see your kids play sports and activities and do different things? Are you happy with your lifestyle? If so, shut up. That's what all this is about, is protecting your ability to live your lifestyle. And sure, somebody has the other end of that coin. It could be you. And if you want to be on that side, continue to allow US to go down the rabbit hole it was going down, because we were this far from being the other side, to be on the losing end of the history books. So think about that and where we're at today. And so what's this mean for you and I? What it means is what it has always meant. Focus your dollars in business, real estate, hard assets. And what's that mean? Go check out our previous episodes. Thanks so much. Make it a great day.